Hi everyone, welcome to UPSC Tree. So today I have taken up a previous year question, OPSC 2019 mains essay paper, and I will discuss briefly 2 or 3 topics that will give you idea on how to approach an essay. So one of the topic before us is a new cultural pluralism to sustain India. It was asked in 2019 OPSC mains, okay, essay paper. So let's discuss this topic and how to approach this topic. Key elements in this essay is cultural pluralism and sustainability of India. So, if you look at India, India is a very diverse culture. So, without going further deep into it, first define what is culture. If you look at culture, culture is essentially man's reaction to the environment. Okay, or how man has created his cultural landscape through the human agency, and this is essentially our reaction to the environment, the kind of environment or climate or soil we live in. According to that, our life is shaped. So if you look at India, all our major festivals and everything that we call culture is shaped around our agriculture system. Okay, that's what is culture is. And then briefly, and then no need to elaborate it too much. Okay, then discuss about elements of culture. What are the elements of culture? If you look at traits of culture, it can be religion, it can be language, it can be the mode of our education, okay, it can be our marriage system, it can be our food or cuisine, okay, it can be our attire or dress. So, if you look at India, India is a land to various kinds of religion. In India, you find various religious groups. We have Hindu, we have Islam, we have Sufism, we have against the Brahminism, we had a backlash called Shamanism. Shamanism tradition is Shraman tradition. Okay, this was backlash against Brahminism. The examples are Buddhism, Jainism, etc. Okay, and if you look at Indian philosophical system also, there are various philosophies which are complementary to each other at times, contradictory to each other at times. So, and there are people in northeastern region and in our tribal pockets of India, they worship the nature, they worship the sacred groups. So, from a religion point of view, it has been, India is a vast country as far as religious diversity is concerned. That you have to show in your essay. Then you talk about language. Language, if you look at Indian's language, we have somewhere around 6 to 7,000 dialects. Okay, so many languages. Education system, we'll talk about it later, because we have mainstream the education system, and education is not acting as a diverse element, but it is acting as a unifying element within the diversity. We'll talk about it later. Then marriage system, if you look at Eastern India, I'll give an example. In Eastern India, cross cousin marriage is not considered, okay, or is considered as a sin. However, if you look at South India, cross cousin marriage is allowed, and they go for cross cousin marriage. If you look at, say, polyandry or polygamy in Muslim men can take many wives. That's what we call polygamy. Okay, that is allowed in India. If you look at polyandry, there are tribal communities where one woman marries multiple men. So these are the various expressions, and very diverse country. If you look at India, it's an extremely diverse country, and different ideology, way of life exist or coexist together without creating the conflict. Okay, so marriage system is done. Then you can talk about food and cuisine. So as Indians, we eat apple from Kashmir, orange from Nagpur. Okay, and we get the exotic fruits, orchids from northeast. Okay, so if you look at one of the say biryani, that is very favorite for the Indians is not indigenous to India. It has been came to us through the after the Mughal conquest. Okay, so these are the things that you have to discuss. How our food and cuisine has been, diverse elements in it. How our marriage system has diverse elements in it. All the diversity you have to show here. Attire and dress. Rajasthan people have different kind of dressing system. Now South Indian people different kind of dressing system. If you look at the temple of democracy, that is the Lok Sabha or the parliament. If you look at the ministers coming from different regions, they dress according to their culture and their way of life. So this shows the diversity of India. So after you establish the diversity of India, okay, and how Indian diversity might lead to, most of the time Indian diversity acted against India too, many of the times, because where there is diversity or difference in opinion, it is bound to be there some, there has to be some kind of conflict or it leads to conflict many of the times. We'll talk about it later. Okay. After you discuss elements of culture, then go ahead and discuss what is cultural pluralism. This is where many of the students will not, discuss it properly. First, if you look at cultural pluralism, it has two extreme ends. Okay, what are the extremes of this particular terminology? One is ethnocentrism. One extreme end, another is cultural relativism. Okay, what is ethnocentrism and what is cultural relativism? Let's understand this one. Ethnocentrism is when you judge others' culture. Say, I am an Eastern Indian person, I belong to Hindu religion. If I judge, say, South Indian, another person from different part of India, say South Indian person, and I look at his way of life, his dressing system, his marriage system, and all that, and I will be judge according to my own standard. If I am judging them, then that kind of viewpoint is called ethnocentrism. Okay. Essentially, it means judging others' culture by making own culture as standard. So, say as a Hindu, if I judge a Muslim community, their religion, their way of life, their way of doing things, their attire, then that kind of viewpoint is called ethnocentrism. And key element here is judging. Here the person is judging, and because of due to this judgment, we usually end up in cultural conflicts. Okay, what is cultural relativism? This is non-judgment. Here, what we are doing as an individual, I will be observing the other's culture without being judgmental about it. That is what most important part of it. Okay, so cultural pluralism is essentially in a broader scheme of things. Say Indian culture, if we call it a Indian culture, within Indian culture we have different subsets of culture. Rajasthani culture is there, Gujarati culture, Odia culture, Bengali culture, South Indian culture, North Indian culture, Northeastern culture. Within Northeast also we have so many variants. So it is a land of cultural kaleidoscope. Okay, so vividly and so so much of diversity of this land has as far as culture is concerned, that it becomes difficult to comprehend as well. Okay, so and broadly if you look at it, I told you about different subsets of culture. Broadly if you look at it, there is something called mainstream culture, and there is another parallel culture that is running. Sociology student might be able to understand this one much better. We have something called mainstream culture. Another culture is we have tribal culture, right? Tribal culture. Okay, so the tribal pockets of India, they have a very different way of life from the mainstream culture. Okay, and that's how India is. And if you look at Indian geography, north we have broadly also we have another broad division, North India and South India culture. And this cultural difference is there because middle part of the country we have Vindhyan mountains, okay, or we have Vindhya and Satpura running in the middle part of the country, and this physical barrier acted as a cultural barrier too. That's why North India and South India cultural assimilation didn't happen through in our ancient times, okay, and that's why we have so much of diversity of culture. Hope you understood this much now. So you can talk about, cultural pluralism is essentially how different cultures, different way of life can coexist together, okay. Say I'll give an example. There was a CBFC director, her name was Leela Sampson. She was a Christian, but she gave an interesting statement saying that although I am a Christian, I live a Hindu way of life. What does that mean? Hindu way of life. If you look at India, it is also called Hindustan, and Hindu is not a religion as such, or Hinduism is not a religion, it's a way of life. It is the way of life of this particular subcontinent or land. The Punjabis of Pakistan and the Punjabis of India, not much, they don't differ much as far as, their cultural, their food habits and attires are concerned. They are very much similar, okay. Although there is a political boundary differentiating them, their culture is same. So they are united by the culture, differentiated by the politics, or separated by the politics. Similarly, Hindu way of life, the people living beyond the land of, beyond the river of Indus. Indus is known as Sindhu. From that we have Hindu, and that's how Hinduism came to be here. That's how the name originated, okay. So Hinduism essentially is a way of life. That's what our Supreme Court also reiterated in one of its judgment, okay. So that's what, when Leela Sampson says that, I am a Christian but I am living a Hindu way of life, that means she is living the way of life of this land, okay. So that's what cultural pluralism means. Cultural pluralism means, although India has a broad culture, there are various subsets of culture within this broader scheme of things, okay, and they are coexisting with each other, okay. But most of the times, due to this, diversity, conflicts arise, okay. And if you look at the essay, it is asking cultural pluralism, why it is essential to sustain India. Let's negate the statement. If there is no cultural plurality, India will be disintegrated? Will there be balkanization of India? True, if you look at 1947, India was divided on the lines of religion, okay. Pakistan was created because the certain Muslim of the country wanted a different country for themselves. So India was divided on cultural lines. If you look at Pakistan and say Bangladesh got separated from Pakistan because Pakistan wanted to thrust Urdu in the Bengalis. The Bengalis were Muslims also. However, they wanted the Urdu to be their main language for the Bengalis, and that's how they humiliated them, and all that happened. That already, okay. So the Bangladeshi people or Bengal Muslim is more similar to the West Bengal people in culture than the Pakistan, okay, and that's how the whole cultural conflict started, and that's how eventually Bangladesh started. East Pakistan separated from Pakistan, okay, and created a new country called Bangladesh. So we know that where there is no cultural, when we don't give prominence, or when we push a mainstream culture on others' culture and disregard their diversity, cultural conflict is going to arise. One of the good example is the movement of Dravida Nadu. If you look at Nehru, he didn't find a single element that binds or stitches all the Indians together. So he wanted Hindi as a major or one prominent language spoken by all Indians. That was the thought behind it. He wanted to find a unity in this vast diversity. Not only Nehru, but the people or the politicians of those times. However, when they tried to push Hindi in the southern belts, there was backlash as well. So when we don't appreciate others' culture, when we disregard their culture, and when we push our culture as a better one or as a prime one, then what happens? There will be a cultural backlash, and when there is a cultural backlash, obviously there will be a cultural disintegration. Conflict will arise, secessionist movement will take place, and India will be divided into multiple parts. That's what I call balkanization of India will take place, okay. So we have history. In 1947, we got divided on religious lines. Okay, Bangladesh got separated from Pakistan because of cultural lines. Okay, or you know, cultural mismatch. Okay, so that's why cultural pluralism in such a diverse country where, you know, so much of philosophy, ideas, religion, food, attire, everything is so different from each other. For India to sustain, or if the idea of India has to, you know, prosper and thrive and sustain, we have to have cultural pluralism within us, because it is a very diverse country. If you look at the diversity, it is overwhelming at times. We have, in all aspects there is diversity. Okay, and when we don't or disregard others' culture and be judgmental about it, then conflict will arise. There will be secessionist movement, there will be, you know, separatist movement will take place, and this will lead to balkanization of India. So for India to thrive as a country, sustain as a country, we need cultural pluralism. And as a citizen, as an Indian citizen, we must be non-judgmental about others' culture. That's what I call cultural relativism. Okay, we might integrate or we might take some good aspects of their culture and make it our own part. We have done this through ages. Say food or cuisine, say biryani. Okay, it is not indigenous to India. It is a inheritance from after the Mughal invasion. Okay, if you look at nowadays, if you look at momo, hope you have, all of you have ate it. Okay, momo. So this cuisine comes from Northeast India, but you can find it in Delhi, find it in different parts of the country, Bangalore, all other parts of the country. So it has become slowly one element or one cultural element from a different pocket of country becomes part of the mainstream as well. Okay, that's what the beauty of India is. That's how we have been evolving as a civilization, as a country. That's how we have been strengthening our diversity and becoming, you know, unified as a country. Okay, and to be for the idea of India to sustain, we need cultural pluralism, and through these examples and all that, you have to prove this point in the essay. Hope you understood this one. I'm trying to keep it brief, so I'll not be discussing much on it, but these are the broad ideas that you have to, you know, stitch it through in your essay so that your essay stands out. Thank you.